Well, in the prior video, we talked about exactly what is involved in the IPO, what traders and investors need to know about the mechanics and the financials involved there. In this video, we'd actually take a deep dive into how it may actually trade, the characteristics of its typical kind of movement, the flows, liquidity, and ultimately what we can expect as traders to trade your strategy on SpaceX. Well, the first few days are going to be pretty chaotic. I reckon, the price action is going to be very scatty. You're going to see a lot of flow-based effects taking place as people looking to enter the position. Maybe they couldn't get a fill in the book build process. They're going to want to come in and buy the stock in that situation there as well. So we could see some pretty chaotic and messy and very, very high volume coming through in the first few days. On the close of the first day, what you're going to see is a lot of the active ETFs are going to be looking to include SpaceX into the basket. So again, those could be some decent flows, which could see the stock moving a little bit higher in the next session because people are going to be front running that and expecting those inclusions flows to be taking place. But after a period of time, the market will settle down and find a fair value. We'll come into balance, and that's probably a better time for me as a trader to get a more realistic understanding about how it's all going to go and go down going forward. But I think the first few days could be pretty chaotic and see some pretty whippy and potentially wide and wild price action there. Well, I think first of all, you are going to see a company that's really going to be a high beta, high volatility play on confidence. If the market's going up by 1%, the S&P, you're going to see SpaceX up 3, 4, 5% in that situation. So a high beta play is going to be a confidence game. It's a sentiment game. When you can't price those future earnings, when you can't price those future cash flows with any kind of certainty, that's when you get big volatility, and that's what I expect. But what we're also seeing is a company where you are going to see it being included into the active ETFs pretty much from the close of business on day one. It's the passive flows that I think are also really important as well. You're talking about the fact that it's going to go into the NASDAQ after 15 days. It's not going to have a huge weighting on that market because the S&P and the NASDAQ look at this on a free float adjusted basis rather than the total shares market cap, which of course, if that was the case, you'd see huge flows playing through. But what you're going to see is it included into the active ETFs from the close of business on day one. After a period of time, 15 days, you're going to see it go into the passive ETFs as well, like the triple Qs, and that's going to have a big effect. But also intraday, what you're going to see is after a period of time when liquidity comes down, you're going to see options playing a really big part. I think you're going to see this being one of the most traded options market of any stocks. And I think, if you see big moves playing through, what you could see is a meme type move where options dealers are going to have to hedge the underlying by buying or selling, depending, to try and bring their deltas in line. So the flow-based effects are going to have huge implications. And that's something, if you're trading intraday, trading short term, that you need to be fully cognizant of. Well, I think first of all, depending on your strategy, a lot of traders like intraday movement, they like that range. But also, this is very different from a lot of other stocks, where you see that situation where you see a steady grind and then bad news comes through and you see a very strong move down. This up the stairs, down the elevator type situation. I think what you're going to see is a very symmetrical distribution in those daily returns. You could easily see a 5% up day, maybe even more, just as much as you could see a 5% down day, which of course is very different from a lot of stocks. So that ability to trade two-way, I think is very much there. It's also going to be front and center in the news. This is a stock very much like none other at the moment. It's going to be, they're trying to position themselves within the AI spectrum in space. Pretty cool, but you are seeing a really cool concept. But for me also, the fact that, because it is trading as a concept of what could be in the future, our ability to price those earnings, those cash flows with any kind of certainty is really hard to do. And so what you see is a wider distribution in expectations of potential outcomes, and that just causes volatility. So the combination of this being a real cool concept, a very small free float, Musk at the helm, and the fact that you can't price those earnings means you're going to see this being a high volatility stock in both two-way. So for a lot of traders, if that's your jam, if you like volatility, this is going to be a stock for you to put on the radar.